my dissertation focused on white middle-class families with a child who was successful in learning to read. And I didn't want to do anything that was comparative in one study. So my next door neighbor, a family across the street from me, someone in the next town that I'd met, I listened actually more than looked for parents who had young children who were successful in learning to read. This is really critical because, and then we still do this, is we look at why kids can't read and then we remediate. But really what we want to say is, hey, how did this kid learn to read and why is this child so successful? And what can we learn from the experience of this child that will help us with other children? And so that really was what my dissertation was about. It was focusing on families where children were really doing well in school. And so there were three main areas. One was I really focused on the family history and how that played in, just as I've done here in telling a little bit of my history. I did that in my doctoral dissertation as well, learning about the families, the kinds of things they would read and write, the experiences of the parents learning to read and write, and how that influenced the ways in which they interacted with their children. The interesting thing about that was that parents who'd had really difficult experiences changed the way that they worked with their kids. You know, I had a really terrible time learning to read and I wanted my child to think it was fun. And so we did all these things. And then there were other parents who had had marvelous experiences and they just passed them on. But there was this adjustment that was taken, as well as at the same time, whole family histories shared through story, through the kinds of things that they do using reading and writing. So that was the one piece, and I used Albert North Whitehead's The Idea of Conservation and Change. So, and then the second part of it was looking at the ways in which children were reading and writing when they were playing and just in their everyday lives, not influenced so much by parents, but just their own thing. Children, when they're playing, how print becomes, reading and writing become part of whatever it is they're doing. So if you're going to have a cafe, then you're going to need menus. So you have to write your menus and you're going to have to take orders. If you're going to have a club, you need rules. So let's think about what rules we want and all of the conversations, the arguments, and the getting of the rules down. If you're going to, one had there was a hairdresser's. The one that was really fascinating, but this is very early on for computers, we were still using, most people won't know this, the cards with the pieces cut out. You might be too young to remember this. So one of the children that was in the study, her father was at Rutgers, and he had a huge, it was a time when computers filled a whole block, and you had these computer cards with punch holes in. And so she had punched holes on this one side and asked a question about adopting a baby. And so she punched in all the things, and on the back it said, you will be a good mother. And I sat and chatted to her about it. So what is this? And so she's explaining, and of course this is her father's literacy. This is what he's involved in with computers. And she'd taken it, and there'd been a story about an adoption that she had heard her mother and her sisters talking about, and she had then taken it and she had decided that she was going to. So it was that kind of literacy that really interested me. And then the charts of toys and the sleeping charts, which teddy bear, which doll do you sleep with, and to make sure that all of the dolls and the teddy bears have a turn and it's fair. And getting involved in that was a very big part of of the study. And then the third part was looking at the mismatch. It didn't start off looking at the mismatch, but looking at school literacies and the kinds of workbook pages that were coming home and the kind of work that the children were doing in school that had absolutely nothing to do with these rich environments in which they were using reading and writing as part of family life. So that was the basis of the family literacy.